I'm Shahar Azani, and in the news, the first step of the proposed judicial overhaul on the reasonableness standard reaches Israel's High Court of Justice. For the first time in the history of the High Court of Justice, an expanded bench of all 15 justices came together to consider petitions against the law to cancel the reasonableness standard in a hearing on Tuesday, September 12th. The High Court has never before struck down a basic law amendment, and there has been debate about whether it has the authority to do so. The proposed judicial overhaul is at the center of a stormy public debate in Israel, including many weeks of demonstrations by hundreds of thousands of Israelis in Israel and abroad. With me to discuss this unprecedented court session and the politics around it is our good friend Ben-Dror Yemini, speaking to us from Miami, where he's visiting with a joint Arab-Israeli delegation celebrating the Abraham Accords. Ben-Dror is an author, writer, and a political commentator, as well as senior journalist with the Hebrew daily Yediot Achronot. Ben-Dror, it's a pleasure to have you with us.
Thank you for having me. And
first of all, you're in Miami.
Just one thing. I mean, you're asking me about the judicial reform, judicial overhaul. I'm a jurist. I was a lawyer for many years. Yes. Now you can continue.
In addition to your many talents, and by the way, very prominent voice in the Israeli public discussion, which is why we're over-thrilled to have you with us. So first of all, maybe before we jump into the judicial issue, share with us a little bit, what are you doing in Miami? What's happening in the U.S.?
Well, we are actually marking the 3 years of the Abraham Accords, and we are here in the joint delegation, which includes many youngsters from the Gulf countries, from Morocco, from Israel, of course, and a lot of meetings in the United States. We were in the Congress, meetings with the Senate members, the House of Representatives members, and it was quite interesting. And we met yesterday evening with the foreign minister of Bahrain. So altogether, yes, there is something new which is happening in the last 3 years. We all hope, and we spoke about it many times in the Congress and with other officials, that Saudi Arabia will join the Abraham Accords. Something is happening. We know that there are new steps, like, for example, this week for the first time, Israeli diplomats paid a visit to Saudi Arabia. It is unprecedented. And yes, something is going on, and we do hope that it will continue
to flourish and bloom. And what better wish than now on the eve of the Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah. So let's, with your permission, dive straight into the issue at hand.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about what happened at Israel's High Court of Justice. What exactly transpired, and why is it so important?
Okay, let me give you, in some words, the background. The background is this kind of debate did not begin today, did not begin with a new government, with a new coalition, not at all. It's many years now that we have a big debate in the Israeli society dealing with what we call the judicial activism, which means maybe, just maybe, as some people say, and many times I said it myself, the Supreme Court went too far in a lot of rulings. I mean, revoking laws and revoking decisions of the government, and so on and so on. And many times it was a kind of, you went too far. Now, it was not a battle between the coalition and the opposition. It was not a battle between right-wingers and left-wingers. It's a big mistake, because many of the critics of the Supreme Court going too far are coming actually from the law faculties in Israel, speaking about professors, speaking about scholars, speaking about lawyers. So yes, I mean, I think it's already agreed upon that the Supreme Court went too far. And it is even agreed upon that we need a kind of reform in order to settle the relationship between the authorities, Supreme Court, government, Knesset, the Israeli parliament. It should have been done long time ago, but unfortunately, it did not happen. And now, when we have a new coalition, which is of the right-wingers and partly even extreme right-wingers, the debate is because of some new steps that were initiated by the Justice Minister, Yariv Levin. Now, I said that the Supreme Court went too far. So let me say that the Justice Minister went also too far. So we need a balance. We need a balance. We need, you know, a kind of a compromise in order to put end to this debate.
Ongoing. You know, one of the main issues here is the fact that this is an amendment to a basic law. Basic law, in accordance with the Israeli legal tradition, is considered to be part of a constitution, even a constitutional amendment. So the question is, does the Supreme Court have the authority to strike it down or even to discuss it? Is that also part of the issue, Ben-Dror?
Yeah, of course it is part of the issue, because for many years it was accepted upon on all parties, even Supreme Court judges, when they retired, they said, no, of course we do not have the authority to revoke basic laws, which is, as you said, part of the Israeli constitution. We do not have constitution, but
Right.
the moment that we will have, it will be based on the basic laws.
It's
now,
such a Jewish compromise.
Which is going far from something like 49. But the point is that they said themselves, and in my article for the weekend, I'm quoting Aaron Barak, who is, you know, the activist from all the judges.
Right.
And he was the president of the Supreme Court, and he wrote articles and he declared, no, basic laws are totally not something that we can revoke. And here, all of a sudden, 2 weeks ago, he published an article, yes, of course we can. So actually, he contradicted himself. I mean, come on, what do you think, that we do not know what you wrote some years ago? We do know. We do know. So the whole debate is derailing in a way. I mean, come on, we can have a compromise. Let's have a compromise. We do not need this kind of deceptions from all sides. We do not need this activism from both sides. So there is not any total justice. There is not. I mean, it's not that one side is absolutely right and the other side is absolutely wrong. We have to bear it in mind. Yes, we need a compromise, and the compromise is achievable. And the one person who is trying to lead this kind of compromise is the president, Buzzi Herzog. He is making efforts, maybe here and there he's making also mistakes, but he is trying, and he is criticized by both sides. I think we should really thank him, because it's not only that he's making efforts, it's the only way to save us all from continuing this debate, which is actually destroying everything.
Ben-Dror, it sounds almost that you wish that the court will not make a decision on this issue, but rather, you know, the politicians, the leaders will make a decision, so that we're not required to reach a point of a verdict on this. Am I correct?
Yes, you are completely correct, because whatever they are going to decide, it will be problematic. Whatever they're going to decide, one side will say, oh, the Supreme Court is against us, the Supreme Court is giving a hand and helping the political activism that might make huge damage to democracy and so on. No, this is not the way. We do not need it. We do not, because actually it will make things worse. So what I'm saying, and I published already an article yesterday, calling the judges, leave it. Let the politicians get a compromise. It is possible. Just let them do it. Let them do it. And let the president of Israel, Buzzi Herzog, continue with his effort to achieve a compromise. I hope it will happen.
You know, Ben-Dror, thinking about Israeli political and legal history, there has always been a tug of war between the judiciary and the Knesset and the parliament, with the parliament almost insisting on not taking decisions and leaving it for the court. For instance, in the issue of, you know, drafting the ultra-Orthodox to the army, the parliament kept on pushing and pushing and pushing until the Supreme Court had to make a decision. And we're seeing this case again here with Israeli leadership refusing to compromise and reach a decision, bringing it to the Supreme Court. But so what's happening this time that makes the situation so dangerous as opposed to drafting the ultra-Orthodox?
First of all, you're completely right. Many times the Knesset members cannot even make a decision, which is a problem. Yes, it is a problem. It did not happen one time. It happened actually in many cases. Now, speaking, for example, about the infiltrators or the
work migrants, right?
So, I mean, yes, the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, they legislated several laws. They were all revoked by the Supreme Court. So in many times, it's not that the Knesset cannot decide. It's that the Supreme Court is actually running a policy of its own. I mean, with all the respect, it's not the business of the Supreme Court. But that's what happened, actually. And that's what annoyed so many people. So we have to bear in mind that the Supreme Court took some responsibility, which it does not, in any normal state, is part of the Supreme Court decision. It should not be like that. I hope now, after this crisis, which we will find a way, a legislation about how to legislate, and a solution must be found.
But Ben-Dror, here is exactly as you say. The parliament, the Knesset, could have avoided this situation had they come together to enact basic law legislation, which details exactly what can and cannot be done also by the Supreme Court. By refusing to do so, they allowed for this opening of judicial activism.
A very good point. Let me tell you something. Speaking about years ago, when Israel began to legislate the basic laws, and after some decisions that went too far, it was Aryeh Deri, the head of an ultra-Orthodox party, who said, "You know what?
Shas, the Sephardic ultra-Orthodox party."
Exactly. And he said, "You know what? I don't want any more basic laws. You know why? Because even if I will legislate, for example, the 10 amendments, Aseret HaDibrot, then they will decide whatever they want. So I don't want any more this kind of basic laws, because actually and eventually the interpretation of the Supreme Court judges has nothing to do with what with the real meaning, with the original meaning of the legislation. So that's why, as you said, many laws were not even constituted because of this problem.
You know, Ben-Dror, you're talking about the necessity of a compromise. We're seeing a lot of the extremists on both sides pulling the leaders in their direction. I'll tell you what it looks like from the outside, and you know, you're in the heart of it, so please enlighten us. It seems that there is a majority within the Israeli mainstream which is interested in a compromise, yet the leaders seem to follow the cues from the fringes on both sides, who refuse to reach a compromise at all costs and refuse to pay the political price in succumbing to the other side.
In one sentence, in your question, actually, you put the question on the table, but you gave also the answer. Exactly what you said. Yes. Unfortunately, we are speaking about, I don't know how many, 20%, according to the polls, according to many surveys that were carried out in the last 7-8 months. Most of the people, we have a majority that is supporting a compromise. Come on, it can be one way or another, but most of the people are looking for a compromise. But we have this kind of politicians, and unfortunately, very non-politicians that actually going to the extreme. And I'm speaking, yes, about the Justice Minister, who is against any kind of compromise. I'm speaking about the former Prime Minister, Ehud Barak, who is one of the leaders of the protest, of the demonstrations. They are against any kind of compromise. And we do not have to be a capture audience of the extremists. No, we do not want.
Right.
We have a majority against it. Unfortunately, from my point of view as a journalist, I can tell you that many times you see more articles against compromise from both sides than articles supporting,
Right.
favoring the compromise. I'm one of those who really in favor of a compromise, and I hope eventually that this is what is going to happen for the benefit of Israel.
For the benefit of Israel. And I want to ask you, Ben-Dror, there have been calls within the American Jewish community, calling different American Jewish communities all across the country to join the protest and join these moves against the government's proposed judicial overhaul. How do you see these calls coming from Israel for American Jews and others, and Israelis abroad, of course, to join this protest?
We all know that there is a big debate here in the United States between Republicans and Democrats. Yes,
Right.
And we all know that the majority of Jews support the Democrats. Yes,
Right.
it's something that we know.
Right.
Do you want us to interfere? Do you want us to say what we think about this kind of debate? No, you don't want us.
Correct.
You don't need us. It's okay that you have your own opinions, and I do meet a lot of Jewish communities, and I do speak to a lot of Jewish communities.
Right.
And I know that they have their own opinion, not the same opinion all the time. But I'm not sure that in this case it will be for the benefit of the relationship between Israel and the diaspora that the diaspora will interfere. Because if somebody will begin to interfere from one hand, someone else might interfere from the other hand.
I couldn't agree more with you, Ben-Dror. I want to ask you about something else. You're talking about compromise and the reasonableness standard and the legal issues, but it seems that the more we pursue these demonstrations and this chaotic political landscape in Israel, the problem begins to fester more and more. And you hear that suddenly it's not just about the legal issue. Suddenly it's about the light rail in Tel Aviv that's not operating on Shabbat, and it's a status quo issue. Suddenly it's about Ashkenazi versus Mizrahi. Suddenly it's about religious versus secular versus religious Zionists. Suddenly it's about settlements and quote unquote the occupation. And the mix of problems begins to make it very difficult to reach any kind of middle ground because of the vast issue that's supposedly at hand.
Let me tell you something. This kind of debate is a heaven. It's a paradise for the extremists from many sides. I mean, so they say whatever they want. I mean, yes, we have a political debate in Israel about many issues.
Right.
Maybe here it's the abortion, in Israel it's the settlements or the relationship between religion and state.
Right.
Fair enough. This debate is still going on, and we are not going to, get all the decisions about every issue that is on the table. No, it's not. We are not going to do it. Right now, we have the problem of legislation, the problem of relationship between the judiciary and the Knesset and the government. We have to solve it. We are not going to solve all the problems in 2 weeks. It's not going to happen. But many people, not many extremists are using the situation,
Right.
abusing the situation,
Right.
in order to deliver their, sorry to say, but hatred, like what you mentioned, Mizrahi Jews and Ashkenazi Jews. No, it does not really exist. Where does it exist? With the extremists, as
Right.
always. I mean, when so many, my kids, when they were in school, most of their friends were a kind of mix. They don't even know if they're Ashkenazi or Mizrahi. And to raise it now, it's so stupid. But there are always buyers to this kind of extremism, unfortunately.
Right. I have to tell you, your message here is focus, right? Focus. Let the leaders focus, solve this issue and move forward. We're not going to solve all of our pending issues at the moment, which again, I couldn't agree more with you. I want to dive into your regional wisdom for a minute. It was a very symbolic moment on Tuesday when the Supreme Court convened to discuss this issue, at the high debate of Jewish society, 15 justices, fascinating to listen to as always. And at the very same time, Hamas in Gaza conducted military operations. The Iranians with the airstrip in Lebanon, ready with Hezbollah collaboration and threatening Israel. It's like we're handling these issues on a different sphere, while the regional instability continues to increase.
Okay, let me tell you something. First of all, yes, there is a damage. We are making a damage to ourselves with this kind of debate. That's one. Second, I can guarantee you that the very moment that something serious will happen and there will be a real threat against Israel, all the forces will be united. Needless to say, even those who are saying we are not going to serve in the army, we are not going to volunteer because of this, because of that, because as part of the protest. No, they will not do it in the moment of real threat. That I can guarantee you, because I know the people. Some of them are my friends. With some of them I can agree, with some of them I disagree. We have this kind of debates. But the very moment, listen, the defense minister said, and rightly so, to the Hezbollah, to the Hamas, to the Iran, don't mislead yourself. Don't mislead yourself. We are totally united against you. We are not united about some internal issues, but don't even dare to think to use the situation in order to do something, because we are here and we are united against you.
So you're not concerned that what we're hearing from some ranks within the demonstrators about refusing to serve will actually transpire should the need arise to defend Israel?
Not at all, and I know what I'm talking about because I speak with the people. I spoke with the association of pilots who are part of the protest. Needless to say, I can guarantee you, the moment of order, they will all serve for the benefit in order to defend Israel. There should not be any kind of misunderstanding about this issue.
I want to ask you something else, Ben-Dror, and you're mentioning your fascinating columns in the Israeli media, and one of the great perks of reading your columns is the realization that you antagonize both sides equally, which is what we love about you, because you call things exactly the way they are. From your perspective, do you believe that there is a chance of actually reaching a compromise based on the current Israeli leadership, or does it require a change in the composition of Netanyahu's current coalition? That is to say, removing the extremists and maybe, hopefully, bringing in some more moderate elements like Benny Gantz.
I don't want to have any kind of misunderstanding. Yes, I'm somewhere in the center. I'm a centrist, yes.
Right.
Yeah, but I'm totally against this current government. I'm totally against it because it's an extreme right government. We have a block of extreme right wingers and a block of ultra orthodox. I don't like it. But this is the Israeli democracy. I don't have to like it or dislike it.
Right.
This is my government. And do you want a new election, and do you want a new government? Fair enough. I want to. But I'm not going to destroy everything just because there is a government that I do not like. It's not the case. It's not the story. This is not the way in order to build a democracy.
Correct.
We have to respect.
That's the opposite of democracy.
Yeah,
even if we don't agree with the government.
Exactly. So fair enough to protest. Fair enough to fight in order to get to a new election. But let's not mix between things. We have to solve this current problem of the relationship between the judiciary and the Knesset and the government and all the other problems that should be debated, that should be discussed. But let's not mix everything and make a kind of a mishmash that will just drag us to worse places. I don't want it.
Do you think there is a real chance of reaching a compromise?
Yes. I mean, it's very close, actually. And let me tell you one more thing. We know exactly how it's going to look like. And there are drafts. There are already drafts. I will not go to details, but there are drafts of compromise. Where is the problem? Just what we mentioned at the beginning. We have those extremists that actually block us from getting to the compromise. And when I'm saying extremists, I speak not only, but mainly on people from the coalition, because they have to make the decision. They have the majority.
Have the power.
They do not, I mean, this coalition do not have the majority in the public, because as we already said, speaking about the Israeli public, there is a majority supporting a compromise, not supporting any kind of extreme steps on behalf of the coalition. No, it's not the case. The case is that we have a majority supporting a compromise, and let this majority win, and that's also a democracy.
Let this majority win of the mainstream. Ben-Dror, I could speak to you for hours, but I imagine you have another flight to catch, and I want to thank you for taking the time off of your precious schedule to join us and enlighten us on this issue. It's been a joy. It's always a joy.
Thank you so much, and Shana Tova.
Shana Tova. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me
on JBS. Ben-Dror, your insights always light the way for all of us and our viewers in understanding what's going on in Israel and beyond, and we will be sure to turn to you as things progress. Thank you, and keep up the great work.
Thank you so much.
And to our viewers, I'd like to say, stay safe and stay happy. Happy Jewish New Year, Rosh Hashanah, Shana Tova, and Chag Sameach. May we all be inscribed in the Book of Life. I would like to thank our director, Sloan Copeland, JBS's acting CEO, Dara Golub, our technical manager, Michael Paley, transmission manager, John McDevitt, and to our wonderful producer of In the News, Carol Lilienthal. For JBS, I'm Shahar Azani. Until next time, next year, see you soon. Shalom and lehitraot.